cigar lovers out there. It's Tem here again, and those wonderful guys at Cigarsindia.in, India's largest online and trusted retailer of cigars, have let me loose and asked me to review one of the Cohiba range of cigars, and this is the Cohiba Siglo 2. I'll go into some of the detail about this, of course, as we're going through the smoke, but I'm very excited about this. Just cut the cigar. Just getting a rough idea of what to expect in the taste when it's lit. Now, this is a very interesting cigar. Or the range is pretty interesting because it's actually a post-revolution cigar. It didn't exist before Castro came to power. And the story about this is quite interesting as well. It was a chap called Bienvenido Perez, nicknamed Chico, who was the head of the personal bodyguard of Fidel Castro. And he happened to be smoking one particular cigar, which was given to him by a friend by the name of Edward Ribeiro. And that was one of Edward Ribeiro's own fumers. What's a fumer, you might ask? That's actually a cigar which the roller or torturador makes for themselves, and it's for their own consumption. Anyway, he gave it to Chico, and Fidel Castro happened to see him smoking that and said, let me try one of those. And to cut a long story short, he loved it, and that's where Cohiba got its big break and was launched from that point on, and it's proved to be a great success from that time onwards. Now, let me light this and I'll just go into some more of the history of this cigar. It was actually offered as a diplomatic gift. It was considered that good by Castro. And this was done in the 1960s. Having said that, it didn't actually have its own name at that time. If you've ever seen a Davidoff label on a cigar, it was something akin to that. And it was just given to diplomats, and it had the diplomat's name as the inscription on the band. And that was it. So it was a white band, very simple, with the diplomat or the VIP's name on it. No Cohiba, just the cigar itself, that was it, with this band. Moving forward now to 1966, Edward Ribeiro was speaking to his personal assistant by the wonderful name of Celia Sanchez, and during this conversation, she was the one, the apocryphal story goes, christened the brand Cohiba, which is actually a Taino-Indian word for cigar, and it was used at the time when Christopher Columbus discovered the New World. He landed in the Caribbean at that time. So that's what it signifies. It means cigar, and I'm sure that those of you out there may have more details on this, and please feel free to actually share that information about this, but from my understanding, this is where it gets its name and where it gets its history. As a brand itself, it was only launched in 1982. So from its inception in the 1960s, it took about 20 odd years for it to actually be recognized globally. There were these apocryphal stories of this diplomatic cigar being given to various and important people, and this was only available and kept in hushed tones until the 1980s, 1982 to be precise, where it was launched at the Ritz Hotel in Madrid. I was doing all the talking, I just let the cigar settle in. I'll go into the characteristics in a short while, but for the moment I just wanted to add that Cohiba as a brand, everyone or people who love cigars and pretty much know about them, and people who haven't tried cigars always want to get their hands on it just for the kudos of saying that they have had a Cohiba which had this exclusive kind of history to it. It is renowned as the flagship brand for cigars coming out of Cuba, and typically it's also priced between 30 to 50% more than other premium cigars, but there still is such a massive demand for this that people are willing to pay the price. Not only that, but you also get fakes and other things, but that we'll cover in another topic. If you actually get these particular ones, you won't be disappointed because they're so well constructed, so well that the leaves themselves are matured for much longer than the other cigar varieties, and the whole effort generally is aimed at producing something that is exceptional, the pinnacle of cigars, especially in the Cuban arena. I won't comment on other countries, but in the Cuban arena, it's considered the premier cigar, the best. Now, going through the characteristics of this Siglo II, well, actually, let me take a step back and give some of the characteristics that you'd expect to find with Cohiba generally, and then move on to the Siglo II. This is the only brand which goes through a third fermentation process. The Seco and the Ligero are aged further for another 18 months or so in cedar oak barrels. Going to the characteristics of the cigar and the Cohiba range generally, the construction is so well executed that you will seldom have any problems with that. It is on the stronger side, and typically the flavors I'm getting out of this are beans and something else, which I'll just go on to. Beans, what am I looking at? I'm looking at cocoa and coffee predominantly, but there's also an element, a sweetness, slight sweetness, which is vanilla. Now there's also another characteristic which the people have said is an expression or is symptomatic of Cohibas, and it's a grassy kind of taste. Not in a negative way, but there's something kind of green or vegetal about it, but it shouldn't be seen as a cigar which is at fault because it's too young or it needs to be aged. Of course, these cigars can be aged for a considerable time and some of the subtle flavors and characteristics will come out. But it's actually imbued with that character from the very start. And from the ones I've smoked, which are considerably older, it still retains some of that characteristic grassy kind of taste to it. So that's one element, and in no way is it overpowering in any way. It's a very well balanced cigar. It's so well balanced and so smooth. You can naturally, or one can naturally understand why this would be considered such a premium cigar. The Siglo range are known to be very similar in taste to each other, from 1 to 6, although the Siglo 1 has been said to be significantly stronger than the others in the range. Personally, I found the Siglo 6 to be quite potent as well. This has been proved to be quite mild and well balanced. So putting that in context, the Siglo range is viewed as slightly milder than the others in the typical Cohiba range, like the Robusto or the Esplendido or the Sublimes, etc. So if you want something as an introduction to the Cohiba range, then certainly go for the Siglo 2. One, again, because it's a nice size and therefore very easy on the pocket as well. And it's a good sampler to get into the Cohiba range if you haven't tried it before. In terms of draw, which I mentioned earlier, you won't have any problems with draw on this because it's a relatively compact size and it's unlikely to be plugged at all. Going through this, I haven't detected any of the noticeably strong grassy taste to it. It's actually proved to be quite delicate. So in that context, it gets a thumbs up from me for just bringing in loads and loads of sweetness, as in the vanilla, as in the cocoa and the coffee. It's so well balanced, it's just remarkable. There's a hint of spiciness, but it's not overpowering. You have the vanilla, cocoa and coffee. There's a slight element of that grassy quality coming out, but in no way are any of those characteristics overpowering. So I could describe it as a painting which is everything is in harmony with each other. There's nothing which actually stands out and is jarring to the eye, and in this case jarring to the palate, the nose and the mouth and the taste. It's just very well balanced. I'd say it's a good daytime smoke. It can certainly hold its own against drink during the day, which I'm having here. Cheers. But you can also enjoy it by itself and pick up the nuances and subtleties which are actually coming out of the smoke in itself. So, in summary, I'd say it's a remarkable smoke. Yes, it is more expensive than other premium cigars, but to a certain extent, and I'd say grudgingly, that it deserves that reputation. Now, why do I say grudgingly? Because I feel that there are other wonderful cigars within the Habanos range themselves, but which are less recognized than this. So it's like the superstar of cigars. So everyone thinks that this is the winner and this is the winner. And I can understand why this would be rated as such a good cigar. It's a very well constructed, well balanced, and it has all these fat flavors and characters coming out, so you can actually pair it with good spirits, you can pair it with good food as well, and it can take all that. It can also be enjoyed by itself, and the flavors and the subtle characters can be enjoyed by themselves. The price point on this cigar, bearing in mind you're paying a premium for such a good quality smoke, is between 1,000 and 1,150 Indian rupees, and it is worth it. But one word of warning I would suggest: please make sure that you do go to a genuine retailer, or for me, I would go to the guys immediately to Cigarsindia.in, because you do get a lot of fakes out there, and being so well known and so recognized as a premium smoke, there is of course the chance that cheaper, people who are making fakes would try and sell those through a contact or someone, and they promise, oh, this is a Cohiba, but it isn't, and you'll be sadly disappointed. So please do make sure that you do go to a reputable retailer. As I said, the guys at Cigarsindia.in are good because, one, these are going to be genuine, and two, they're well maintained, they're well kept, and the draw on this, there's no dryness, it's just in perfect condition. So for the sake of that, I would suggest you actually go to a reputable retailer. I'm going to enjoy this more now. I have nothing really much more to add to this. It just keeps delivering. It's reached its pinnacle, it's got those flavors coming out, it's just a mild hint of spiciness, but just loads and loads of beans, coffee, vanilla and cocoa. It's not going to disappoint, so please give it a try. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and the guys at Cigarsindia.in are also on Facebook and Twitter, so please do get in contact with them. Thank you very much.